has weakened quite substantially. It's hovering around 14.51 against the dollar right now. It's just ticked to that level, 14.51, and it's flirting with 19 rand against the British pound, so not doing too well at all. Part of the reason for this is, as you mentioned, Francis, the fact that Fed Chair Janet Yellen has indicated that she feels that the US economy is ready for a further rate hike. This has now prompted markets to invest more in dollar-denominated stocks. That means more demand for the US dollar, which has strengthened the dollar, and as a result, emerging market currencies like the rand are on the back foot. But also the other reason why the rand remains on the back foot is because of local reasons. This as there are fears that Finance Minister Pravin Gordhan may be charged with some sort of criminal offence. Locally, the bourse has been pretty much in the red most of the morning, and then in the afternoon it did sort of dip up into positive territory, but just. In Europe, we see European markets in the negative, while the London FTSE has been in the positive. Let's take a look at the indicators. Well, I'm joined by Gary Booysen. He's from Rand Swiss. Thank you very much for joining us, sir.
Good to be here.
Good stuff. Now, why are we seeing the sort of markets in general in the red today?
I think you mentioned at the top of the show, a little bit of it is the hawkish tone struck by Janet Yellen over the weekend at the Jackson Hole meeting. Although we did get, I want to point entirely to central bank policy, because obviously Kuroda came out from Japan very dovish, at least, on the ability of Japan to stand ready to continue stimulating. So, we saw the Nikkei up a little bit this morning. I mean, you might also look towards, perhaps the UK bank holiday that we have today, maybe a little bit less volume in the market. And just seeing it come off a little bit in line with the S&P on Friday. Okay.
Now, we know that when the dollar strengthens, that tends to have a negative impact on commodities. How have we seen commodities performing today?
Yeah, so the commodity prices, you're absolutely right. With a stronger dollar, you're seeing the dollar-based commodity prices coming off, which isn't necessarily fair, because the value of the commodity in dollars, yes, is falling, but maybe in other currencies it isn't. So, I think if we take something like gold, for example, I mean, if you actually look at the rand price of gold, it's actually going up, while the dollar price of gold is coming down. So, overall, I think, a stronger dollar is bad for commodity spot prices, but I don't think it doesn't change the supply and demand dynamics that we're seeing in the commodity markets.
And what are those? Are they improving? Because there's always a different narrative.
Yeah, definitely. So I mean, we watch the production numbers of the different mining companies very carefully to sort of see what kind of supply is coming on stream, and again, you look at all the demand sort of driven metrics as well. So you see how much is China consuming, how much Europe consuming, and again, it depends very much on the commodity, the specific commodity that you're looking for. So, last week, we saw iron ore, for example, coming off fairly dramatically. But again, we still see a huge glut of iron ore coming into the market, and the demand not quite, there for it. On the other hand, if you look at something like the gold market, we're seeing and the platinum market for that matter, you're seeing a consolidation in the mines, and you're seeing, the curtailment of production. So you would expect that to be fairly supportive for prices.
Last week we were asking, will the rand flirt with 14.40 against the dollar? Now, this week, will it flirt with 14.50? It's breached all of those levels. How low can it go? And in the event that Finance Minister Pravin Gordhan should be charged, what sort of blowout will we see, if any?
Yeah, it's interesting, because again, we're trying to divorce the South African influence on the currency versus the offshore influence. So obviously with Yellen being fairly hawkish, you've seen flows out of the emerging markets. So the rand has weakened not just on the back of the local political noise, but also on international factors that have nothing to do with local politics. That said, I mean, we know that local politics do drive the currency, especially if you consider the watch that the ratings agencies have on us at the moment, and and the potential for them to then downgrade our credit rating. So for us, I mean, we saw one of our prime brokers just came out with a target, and it is quite binary. Either it's going to be okay, or they're going to charge Provan Gordon, in which case it's not going to be okay. And they said the downside target there is 19 rand to the dollar and 25 rand to the pound. So I mean, there still could be a significant weakening, and I would tend to agree with that, because we look at credit default swaps spreads, and that in July that was pretty much pricing in a ratings downgrade for us. At the moment it isn't, which means that the financial markets are a little bit more optimistic about South Africa. So if we do get a shock, if we get obviously Provan Gordon being charged or arrested or something like that, I think the risk is to the downside. You're going to see a dramatic sell-off in the currency from what have been fairly benign levels. I mean, we got almost to 13.20 at one stage.
All right, let's quickly have a look at a stock. Bidvest came out with their results for the year ended June. They're reporting profit after tax down 28.5% to 2.4 billion rand. I mean, obviously this is after they've spun off their food business to this new company called Bidcorp. Has that got anything to do with it? And interestingly as well, their CEO, a chap called Lindsay Ralph, saying hands off Treasury.
Yeah, absolutely, and you understand that because Bidvest, the Bidvest company now, formerly Bidvest, obviously had the food services group that had spun off Bidcorp, which was the international businesses, the international food services business. So Bidvest remains a very local company at the moment. So absolutely, hands off Treasury for Bidvest. But you're looking at the numbers. I mean, again, you've got to normalise those numbers because there was the unbundling of Bidcorp. So they weren't bad. I mean, it is growing revenue. It's flat. Earnings also not particularly exciting, but very much still steady as she goes. I mean, Bidvest being a diversified industrial is going to feed off the GDP growth rate of South Africa. So with we forecasting 0% growth in the South African market, so that it makes it tough for Bidvest to grow its earnings dramatically. That said, it's not an expensive company. I mean, if you are looking for targeted South African exposure, Bidvest is definitely one to consider because the actual security price is not expensive.
Okay, all right, we're going to leave it there. Thank you for your time as always. That was Gary Booysen. He's from Rand Swiss. After the break, Francis has more business news for you.